Hello and thanks for staying on LN 24/7. This is Politics Now. My name is Morno Bala Gbogbo. Today we are going to be talking about an issue that has been trending for a couple of days, which has to do with the upper chamber, the Senate of the National Assembly, talking about budget padding controversy. Let's have a look at some of our talking points today on the show. First, we'll talk about the clarifications over the 3.7 trillion padding of the budget, allegedly. And then the suspension of our Senator Ningi over false allegations. And finally, we'll talk about the integrity of the Senate. With us on set right here in our studios in Abuja is Honorable Mike Omogbehin, who is a political analyst and former lawmaker from Ondo State. Honorable, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
All right, we'll file a report to give you a background of what played out yesterday in the Senate. Have a look. We'll be back.
Drama ensued at the upper chamber of the National Assembly on Tuesday during a plenary session over budget padding allegations. In an interview, Senator Abdul Ningi Bauchi Central had claimed that the federal government is operating two versions of the 2024 budget and that the 28.7 trillion naira budget passed and signed into law by President Bola Tinubu was skewed against the North. Many senators and the presidency had pounced on Ningi, describing his claims as far-fetched and unbecoming of a leader of his status. Ningi would later deny saying that the country is operating two budgets, but insisted that only 25 trillion naira of the budget was tied to projects, while 3.7 trillion naira had no project tied to it. However, Senator Ningi, who was given a fair hearing on the floor of the Senate, maintained his position that 3.7 trillion naira could not be accounted for in the 2024 budget.
We'll add anything on the budget and it becomes padding. The tapes are there. I said the National Assemblies have powers, and you cannot call that powers padding. And I said I'm very grateful to the presidential spokesman who, encountering me, said the National Assembly added 1.27 trillion. And I was very clear. I was not aware of the addition. I was not even aware, as I'm seated here, of the full budget of the National Assembly.
During the plenary session, there was uproar over the revelation that ranking senators received 500 million naira each for projects. Senator Jarigbe Agbom Jerigbe of the People's Democratic Party, representing Cross River North, had revealed during a Senate session that ranking senators received a sum of 500 million naira each. The senator revealed this while speaking during the plenary while discussing Senator Olamilekan Adeola's motion on breach of privilege by Senator Ningi.
But I'm back on these issues and coming up with issues of the budget and individual issues concerning what came to our various constituencies. If we want to go into those issues, all of us are culpable. Some senators here, so-called senior senators, got 500 million each. I am a ranking senator, I didn't get. Did I go to the press? I didn't get. Most of you got. And yes, if we want to go into those issues, excuse me, if we want to go into those issues, yes. So I think that Senator Ningi.
Meanwhile, Senate leader Okpeyemi Bamidele alleged that Senator Abdul Ningi is propagating an impeachment agenda against Senate President Godswill Akpabio, despite the Northern Senators Forum not to being in support of it. Bamidele, representing Ekiti Central on Tuesday, maintained that what Ningi did was tantamount to a failed civilian coup, adding that he only wanted to use the Northern Senators Forum to push his agenda.
I am telling you, sir, and I want Nigerians to know, I say it for history.
The last time the people of South that you represent had a chance to be Senate President was over 40 years ago. The last time the entire people of the South had a chance to be Senate President was during Obasanjo regime, when he went to the Southeast. 5 people were elected because they were impeached in quick succession. But as soon as he left the South, we had peace and stability again because we will always cooperate. David Mark spent 8 years. Senator Ahmad Lawal spent 4 years, peaceful 4 years. Saraki, even with all he did, spent 4 years, he was not impeached. It is about Akpabio. It is about the South. You can now understand why Senator Ningi, we want to use the name of Northern Senators Forum, even when most of them did not agree to this.
After much deliberations from other members of the Senate, a member of the Appropriation Committee in the Senate, Jimoh Ibrahim, first moved the motion for Ningi's suspension for 12 months over allegations of criminal misinformation and breach of peace in the National Assembly and the country by extension.
Suspend Senator Abdul Ningi for an initial period of 12 months. 12 months, yes, including his entitlement and privilege as Senator of the Federal Republic of Nigeria of the 10th Senate, and made him to stay away from the National Assembly for the suspended period. 2, the Senate should send a warning letter to Senator Suleiman Abdulrahman Kau, and this should be warned to stop posting, citing informations that are not right, and then he should tender apology. He should stop posting all those informations with a way of distorting facts.
After deliberations under the leadership of President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, resolved to suspend Senator Ningi for 3 months from all activities of Parliament, while Senator Kawu got off with a warning.
The Senate hereby places distinguished Senator Abdul Ningi on suspension in respect of his vituperations, falsehood, and unverified report in the BBC interview, including other media or houses, and is therefore suspended for a period of 3 months from partaking in events in the Senate or being found in the precincts of the National Assembly for the next 3 months. I agreed that where distinguished Senator Abdul Ningi shows remorse in writing through apology to the Senate, that such should be deliberated and decisions should be taken by the Senate if such occurs. Is this a true reflection of what transpired in the Committee of the Whole? Yes. Accordingly, the Senate hereby warns distinguished Senator Ismail Akawu from posting or reposting falsehood or items capable of causing division or breakdown of law and order in the country.
Elsewhere, the co-founder of Civic Group Budget, Seun Onigbinde, has said that Senator Abdul Ningi was right that there was no detailed project allocations for about 3.7 trillion naira of the 28.78 trillion naira 2024 Appropriation Act. He made this revelation in a TV interview. He further said claims by the Bauchi's central senator that Nigeria was running 2 concurrent budgets wasn't factual. Onigbinde said as the rowdy session by Senate was ongoing, the budget team fact-checked claims by Ningi. The budget boss urged the executive and the National Assembly to ensure transparency in the budgetary allocations to MDAs and government-owned enterprises. Meanwhile, a breakdown of Senator Ningi's budget padding allegation includes GO's budget 1.88 trillion naira, TED Fund 700 billion naira, National Judicial Council 341.63 trillion naira, National Assembly 344.85 billion naira, Public Complaints Commission 14.46 trillion naira, Independent National Electoral Commission INEC 40 billion naira, totaling up to 3.32 trillion naira. Also, details and breakdown of insertions in the 2024 budget categories of projects has sparked outrage in the nation. In the breakdown, 1,150 streetlights worth 212 billion naira, 427 boreholes worth 82.5 billion naira, 170 ICT projects with a value of 30.95 billion naira, 7.61 billion naira for empowerment of traditional rulers. After the plenary session, reports hardened that Senator representing Bauchi Central Abdul Ningi tendered his resignation as the chairman of the Northern Senators Forum. He resigned after being suspended by the upper house for 3 months over budget padding claims. Although the resignation letter was dated March 11th, a copy was made public shortly after his suspension. The discussion over alleged budget pardon is not over, as more is yet to be uncovered.
Of course, you've been following the controversy that has to do with budget padding. I mean, every year there's always a budget, of course, presented by government to the National Assembly to look into it and get to, make sense of what is needful. And then, of course, the budget is reviewed and then passed into law. But in the case of this current administration, which is led by the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio, when the budget was presented in December, they, added to the budget and then it was finally signed into law. Now, let's talk about some of the allegations from Senator Ningi from Bauchi against the Senate regarding 3.7 million pardon. We saw the drama that ensued in the National Assembly yesterday and how almost every lawmaker who had a chance to open the mic to speak talked about the fact that, this was false. And even Ningi himself, sort of a controversy had said, the broadcaster that put out the information, the interview, took things out of hand, and the media all went in to say, oh, the budget was padded before all the clarifications was made yesterday. What are your thoughts on these allegations and how the Senate was able to control the narrative via the open session on Tuesday?
Well, I think Senator Ningi, as a senior parliamentarian, should have known better not to grant such an interview. I was shocked when I heard from him that the budget currently being implemented, it is not the one passed. And that is a very touching statement. His speech touches the integrity of the National Assembly, the integrity of the Appropriation Act. And that shouldn't have come from him. And I was discussing with some friend, and I said it is impossible that Nigeria will be running two budgets. It will be impossible to say that the budget currently being implemented is not the one passed, that the one passed now is inflated by about 3 trillion. It's near impossible. It's impossible for such an act to happen.
And just to add to what you said, the boss of budgets, yesterday went on national TV to actually say that they were fact-checking Ningi when he was making those statements, and it's not possible that the government is running two budgets.
I've just told you that it's impossible. Looking at the procedure and process of the Appropriation Act, it's actually impossible for it to happen. Now, let me take you on a journey of how Appropriation Act is prepared. The executive will bring out what is known as a budget proposal. It is not a project, it's a proposal, a document proposing that this is what we intend to do. It's brought before the joint house of the parliament. And after that is considered the first reading. Don't forget that it's actually a bill. And
the first reading, the second reading?
The first reading is when the president presents it, and then it will be taken before the House of Rep and the Senate, all right? And then the preliminary discussions will be made after the first reading, and then it's now sent to committee level, all right, which is the second, then the second reading is taken. Then from there to committee levels. From there, I mean, public debate sometimes, and then it gets to the third reading. After the third reading, then a committee of the House of Rep and committee of the Senate will sit, a joint committee, to match whatever the House of Rep and the Senate has done to form one document. The day after, it will be returned to the Senate and returned to the House of Rep, where we will now have to sit at what is known as the supply committee. The Speaker or the Senate President will now become the chairman of that House. And then, figure by figure, it will be debated, it will be taken, and then we say, deal or no deal. It's deal. If there is no deal, then it has to be discussed again and the rest. So having passed through this process, it is absolutely impossible for the budget to be what Senator Ningi presented it to be. By the way, I also want to take you on the journey of the word pardon. Now, the word pardon came into limelight first in 2016. If you remember, that was the year when we were talking, the 8th Assembly, we were talking about the missing budget. And what really happened? What happened was that the National Assembly Budget and Research Office discovered that from the budget office, from the executive, there were duplications of items, a lot of them. And I will refer you to this book. You know, it was published in 2016. If you go through it, you will see these are publications, these are duplications of what we got from the budget office in the presentation. And now, it was because of the alertness of this office that we were able to discover it. And that was where the word budget pardon started from. For us in the parliament, you cannot accuse the parliament, who has the duty of vetting, the duty of editing, the duty of passing a presentation from the executive law, of pardon. How can I pardon a document that is owned by me, the document that is owned by the people? The proposed budget and the eventual appropriation act is the property of the people. The National Assembly comprises of the representative of the people. So when you talk about pardon to a parliamentarian, he seems not to understand what you are talking about.
I think that was the mistake from Senator Ningi. Let's have the graphic up of some of the allegations, the way he did not read meaning to what he was actually talking about, because now we're saying this is not pardon. But when you look at Senator Ningi's budget pardon allegation, he was actually referring to, I think what has been clarified is the allocations that were excluded from the 2024 budget breakdown. So you see the goals budget, the TED Fund, the National Judiciary Council, and the monies allocated to that, and then the National Assembly allocations. All of these things as listed there do not have like a breakdown. So that could be what he was referring to, you know, as a form of pardon.
What do you mean by breakdown?
Explanations, because he said he had a private investigator, although he did not really have enough time to explain himself during the course of the plenary on Tuesday. So given that graphic that you just saw some of the details, which when you sum everything up, totals 3 point, something trillion naira, which is, in line with the allegations that he was referring to. But just to refer to what the boss of budget actually talked about, he said, this is not new, because historically, those provisions, those lists that we just saw up on the screen happen every year. So there is nothing new. But is it something that is of concern? Yes, he may have been wrong, to make those allegations, but it brings to mind, the discreteness of, a budget and the breakdown. If it's there, then it helps to explain to people that, this is not some money that is going to a particular agency or like INEC, and we're not saying what these monies are used for.
Now, you see, I told you about this. The supply committee of the budget to decide the final confirmation of a budget. Now,
you cannot see the breakdown of the headings in that summary. But if you go into the budget document proper,
which is about 2,000
pages, you will see it, but you are not expected to see the detail in the summary that will be presented for confirmation. They will pick the judiciary and said the judiciary has a total budget approval for this, deal or no deal. You will say deal, that is gone. The National Assembly has so figure, deal or no deal, that is taken. Don't forget that from even what he is talking about here, you are talking about two different arms of government that have their own budgetary provision distinct from that of the executive, distinct from that of the capital expectations on what to be done on capital project and the rest on recurrent expenditure. They have their own exclusively. So I am still surprised, baffled, that somebody like Senator Ningi, who should know better, I mean, I think it's about the second or the third time he will be getting into the Senate. No, I want to believe that there is a misunderstanding somewhere. I am not oblivious of the fact that as politicians, as parliamentarians, there are interests, that should be discussed with the leadership, taking from what you expected to get to your...
Are you speaking with regards to monies that are given to each representatives for their constituency?
When you say money, no money is given to any representatives. Well, budgetary provisions.
Okay.
Yes, because no money is given to any parliamentarians. Budgetary allocations that are put in MDAs, ministries, departments, and agencies of government on behalf of the people of the constituency, either as extracted from the motions that you have passed over, or as extracted from your, consultations and the rest.
Yeah, if I get you,
yes.
Was it this disparity that led to this, sort of grievance?
Yes, you see that you see your what you get as a parliamentarian depends on your level of lobbying. Are you getting what I'm talking about? Listen, one of the reasons why parliamentarians that we normally bring in what you call padding into the budget, and that we do not return it as brought by the executive, is very simple. When the executive is preparing the national budget, they sit in the office, they sit in budget office. You do not carry the representative of the people along. How will you from the presidency, from the ministry, know what my people are going through? If you do not carry me along, and you brought a document that will eventually become law, don't forget it is a bill. Just like any other bill, the appropriation bill, before it becomes an act, will pass through every stages. You do not expect me to make a law, in this case the Appropriation Act, without putting the interests of my people in place. If you bring a budgetary proposal, and I open the first page, and I look at it, nothing from Okutukwa, the federal constituency. I open the second chapter, nothing for Okutukwa, the federal constituency. Like that, every other person will be checking. And you are taking huge amount of money to say you are putting on Niger Bridge, you are putting on this place. None for my people, none from for us. And you expect me to sit over such a budget and pass it? Never. It will not happen. And that is where the lobbying starts. You now begin to, from the committee level to the leadership of the House, to say on so day.
And that will finally determine what comes
into the budget. To say so date I made a motion, if you remember, about infrastructure in so place and the rest. I wrote a letter of appeal to you, Mr. Speaker, dated so date. And they will compile all of this. The ones that can be taken in will be taken into the budget and given to the appropriation committee to add.
Oh, okay.
That is what happened. And you can't call that padding. The document belongs to us, ab initio, belongs to the people. If you have presented to me my own document, and I do not, as a stakeholder, and I do not see my interest in taking care, I'm not talking about my personal interest. When I talk about interest in this sense, I'm talking about the interest of the people we are representing. So the word padding is unknown. It's unknown to a parliamentarian.
All right, sir. Let's talk about the suspension of Senator Ningi. What's the legality behind it? Because he's been suspended for 3 months. It was supposed to be more than that, but we also, during the session, I think one of the lawmakers had to plead that it should be reduced. I thought before decisions like these are made, there has to be proper investigations. Of course, there were clarifications yesterday. We heard when Oshomole was talking. What he did it warrant a suspension?
Well, you know, again, from outside the parliament, people will look at it. Well, he has an option of going to court if he thinks that can help his matter. But he knows that he has an obligation that he signed a document, he signed a code of conduct. He knows that before he goes public, he must first exhaust all internal machineries, for settlement for his decisions. And I learned that he actually approached the Senate President about the discrepancies, the disparity in the budget, in the allocation that were given. He should have first exhaust that since he didn't do. There is the ethic committee must do his job, and they have done their job. Yes, as a senator,
right on the spot, without taking a few moments.
What's a few moments? It's not there. You know, what you see on the screen is not the whole story. There must have been a committee meetings. The ethics committee must have met. And in this case, how long will it even take you? How long will it take you to even determine this case?
They must have, called him and then have some deliberations before taking it back to the parliament.
Yes, I believe that the ethics committees must have met with him. You don't need to see that on the screen. The ethics committee must have called upon him to defend what he said. And it is indefensible because what he said it's not possible. What he said, he must have said it out of anger, out of, meanness. I listened to my very good friend, Senator Jarigbe, and that gives me the inkling of what has happened, what Jarigbe was about to say.
What happens after this 3 months suspension?
He will come back and believe that he sins no more. It's every parliamentarian knows
he must have
the sanction.
Sins in this 3 months.
It's expected that he must have repented. Oh. Let me tell you one thing, brother. Let me tell you one thing. The parliament is an assembly of very powerful people. If cautions are not taken, disciplinary measures are not put in place, it will become a gathering of lawless people. And therefore, there is a deliberate plan to make sure that there is a particular committee body that will subject you to discipline, no matter how powerful you are. And that is the body that has disciplined Senator Ningi.
Now, Honorable, from what we heard, according to some lawmakers that had the opportunity to be interviewed by journalists, they said that some of them actually met with him to, counter what he had said in that interview. He had the opportunity to actually apologize to the House, but he still maintained his stance from the report we played earlier. Do you think it would have gone sideways if he had actually apologized?
Maybe they would have just said, the leadership would have just said, go and sin no more, and I may play out of it. But for him to insist that he's not apologizing, and for what, like I said, allegation that is not possible. It's just not possible. Looking at the process of the Appropriation Act, it is not possible that you have two separate budgets being implemented. It's not possible, except if he's referring to the budget proposal. There's a difference between the budget proposal and the appropriation bill. What is being implemented is not the budget proposal. It is the appropriation bill that is being implemented. So if he is talking about the budget proposal, that is not the budget of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. That is just an idea, a projection by the executive. It becomes an act after the parliament has acted upon it. So, and it is not possible for us to have two appropriation acts.
Okay, now, Honorable, there are some people who are calling for investigations to, some of the transfers. So I think let's have the graphic up again. just to probe into how some of these monies are being spent. Because if there is no proper breakdown for it included in the budget, then it makes a lot of people concerned. Even in the words of the Senate President, he said, I mean, there's no trust in the Senate again. And you look at details and breakdown of some of the insertions. You look at some categories of projects. I mean, 212 billion for street lights, 82.5 billion naira for boreholes. When you look at all of these breakdowns, does it make sense to you? These monies are monies that as a country, we are borrowing these monies, not as if we even have the capacity to generate this income. Is this breakdown, is it justified to you in this present time when we're trying to cut cost of government?
What you have just shown me is not a breakdown. It's a summation. It's a summation.
I know.
Each of those summations still have
of the projects for lawmakers and their constituencies. So is that justified?
What makes it unjustified? I've just told you earlier that by the time the executive were preparing their budget proposal, they did not carry the representative of the people along. If my people, I mean 360 members of the House of Rep, 109 members who we are elected, 109, 360 are elected. Hold on. Okay. Only 2 people are elected in the executive. Who should know better what our people need? It is those of us who were elected from the delineated political regions.
Have been released or will be released. But the question now is, how do you see the impact of these monies that has been released?
First and foremost, what you should ask yourself, will these budgets, the figures you've seen there, will they be giving cash backing? It is one thing for you to have the figure right in the budget. It's another thing for you to have the fund available to implement it.
So are you
what percentage
is not available?
And what I'm saying is that it does not even matter whether it's available or not. The issue is that when you begin to ration the available cash, what percentage of what you see there do you think will be released, will be implemented?
But like you said, it depends on the bargaining power of the lawmaker.
No, the bargaining power in having, listen, you get me right. The bargaining power, the lobbying power for you to even get it into the budget first. All right? Then thereafter, what is the capacity? What is the percentage of capital implementation? What will be the percentage of capital implementation of 2024 budget? It's based on availability of funds. If you said you are putting 3-something billion, 30-something billion naira into borehole, into this, or into this and so, what percentage of that particular line will be implemented? So it's one thing for you to see that figure, it's another thing for you to even see whether you have the cash backing to implement it. So at the end of the day, it is the review of the implementation of the 2000 budget that we should bother ourselves about. And then what people talk about is the justification for this project coming. The justification I've told you. The justification is that the parliamentarians are the representative of the people. They know the people better. They know where they should. When
you say they are the representative of the people, you know, most times when you have sessions in the Senate, it's not open for everybody to see what's going on. And, you know, back in the day, you would find transcripts, you know, of plenary sessions of the Senate, but that's not the order of the day. They opened the session yesterday just to prove a point to Nigerians that, there was no pardon. You saw how all of them were just speaking out against Ningi and all of that. All of this is just needful clarifications.
No, I think you have a very wrong impression. Listen, I think you have a very
wrong impression.
Let me tell you one thing. There are normal sittings. There are emergency sittings. There are committee sittings. When there is an emergency issue, like what happened to Ningi'S issue, of course, either the House of Rep or the Senate will have an emergency sitting, plenary sitting, to clarify an issue. But to say that they do not have, do you know what's called an order paper? There is an order paper that states exactly what the business of discussion would be outside an emergency. which could lead to suspension of the of the other paper or the rest. So there are procedures, and let me tell you, the Parliament operates on two issues. You cannot discuss issue without a motion. You cannot discuss an issue without presentation of a bill. Even before Ningi'S issue was raised yesterday, a motion must have been raised. So there is an order within which issues are discussed.
Let's move away from Ningi a bit.
Yes.
You know, during the course of plenary yesterday, we saw Senator, make a revelation, although there is clarification too about that, talk about some people getting 500 million naira for constituency projects. And some of the lawmakers that have been interviewed, at least from the interviews I've seen, denied that, okay, they didn't get that. So you have senior lawmakers, and you have lawmakers that are not senior lawmakers. You have lawmakers who are high-ranking with the sitting party in power and those who are in the opposition. How does it play out in terms of these constituency allocations? And I think, is that what I asked you before, but I just want to say that, is that what could be causing some of these drama that we are seeing, especially from the Northern Senators Coalition, of which Ningi has resigned from being their chairman? Is that what's causing all these agitations? Because when you follow the money, you discover it's the root to some of these conversations we're having.
I've told you earlier that you need to be a very strong lobbyist when you are a parliamentarian, you are a legislator. If you want to have,
but is it okay for somebody to say, "I'm not getting"?
Just hold on. Just hold on. Two things you must consider here. One, it is the allocation for capital budget, the capital budget, the capital issues in the original budget. The constituency project is a quite different issue. The constituency project is state by state. It is equal for all states, the 36 states. I want you to get this explanation very correctly. But the constituencies in the states are not the same. In Ondo State, we have 9 constituencies. In Lagos, 24. Kano has 24. If the same amount of money is allocated to Ondo and Lagos, it simply means that such money will be shared into 9 in my state, while it will be shared into 24. So, a member of the House of Representatives from Lagos may get lesser than what the representative from Ondo State or from Bayelsa, for example, will get. Are you getting what I'm talking about? So it cannot be equal from constituency to constituency, depending on the state where you come from. Bayelsa has just about 4 or 6.
But I understand what you're saying, Honorable, but let's get some context here. Fine, based on your ability as a lawmaker, to lobby for some of these allocations, but at the same time,
and I've told you, I said 2 issues. There are 2 things here. The constituency project is different from what they are talking about. The constituency project, I've told you, are shared equally among states, and then thereafter they will be shared among the available constituencies. So that is a different matter. But this other one they're talking about is the capital allocations to each of the federal or to constituencies. That depends on your ability to move.
Good. I understand clearly, but the point I'm trying to make is that, don't you think that for some people who probably feel as they've been in parliament for a lot of years, they call them senior ranking lawmakers? Is that not a problem in itself?
No, but every parliament of the world, listen please, every
so somehow there seems to be a form of inequality.
Of course, listen. Every parliament of the world have senior ranking officers. They have leadership, all right? And most of the time, the benefits are not equal. But again, I tell you something. In those days, you'll be talking about first-timers not chairing grade A level committees and the rest. But we have seen in the night assembly, we are also seeing in this 10th assembly, that we now have some powerful first-timers and the rest chairing powerful committees and the rest. So all depends on the quality of the person all depends on how you can lobby. You cannot be a successful legislator if you do not have very strong lobbying ability. That is just the issue.
We talk about a house that's supposed to be very federal character conscious. Let's give example of someone like the Senate President, Godswill Akpabio. He is the Senate President. Are you trying to tell me that there are no lawmakers who have more constituencies, than the Senate President? But simply because he's Senate President, he has more ability and more power to be able to get some of the more allocations for his own constituency than even others that may have more things to deal with in their constituency.
You see,
that's what I'm trying to
listen to
help us understand.
Unfair, there's nothing to understand. It is what you have just said. He is the Senate President. Are you getting what I'm talking about? What are the benefits that comes with the presidency of the Senate? What are the benefits that comes with leader as a leader of the House? These are part of the benefits that comes with it. So when you come back next time or as a legislator, strive also to get to that level. You may say that I'm being unfair in this thing, but that is the reality. That is the reality on ground.
It is Nigerians in these constituencies that will suffer.
Which constituency?
The constituency of the lawmaker who probably is not in a good position. It might not even be because he doesn't know how to lobby. Because another thing for you to lobby.
No, if you do not get
the majority.
Listen. Your ability to lobby depends on which is the result you get that will qualify your ability to lobby. It is not your moving around. Are you getting what I'm saying? You see, people watching me now will be talking and say, what is he talking about? I'm talking reality. I'm talking what is obtained at the floor of the House. That is what is obtained. That is what is talking. That is what is happening. That is the position. Why do people struggle to become Senate President? Why do people struggle to become leader of the House?
To get more for their constituencies.
That is exactly what is for their state most of the time. Let me tell you one thing again that may not appear. By the time Akpabio gets what he has gotten as Senate President, don't forget he's from South. All right? There is going to be distribution across that level. As the leader, when Gbajabiamila Abela was the leader of the House, whatever he gets from all the Southwest, he will pick interest and the rest and say, okay, take this envelope, you take this envelope, you take this envelope. That is what enhances their leadership. I am not saying that it is fair, it is equitable. That's not what I'm saying. But that is what nature itself.
But being a democratic government that we are running in this nation,
yes.
Don't you think that there is need for us to examine some of these things and find, because Nigeria belongs to everybody. It doesn't belong to some people who are able to lobby more than other people. That's what democracy is about. It's for governance, for the people, and by the people. That's the ideal thing we expect, even though that's not what is in reality. I mean, of course, it's what politics is all about.
Everybody cannot get, even in the utmost, when he talks about equality, talks about democracy, we can never get it equal. The fingers are not equal, and that is the truth. We must look at these facts for what they are. It cannot be gotten equally. Now, there are some budget spread by the executive here and there. That, to a certain degree, to the size of the state, all right? Sometimes, too, it should be even to the contribution of each of the states. But you know what is upstairs now. I mean, that is not what is happening. After that is done, the essence of you as a legislator is in doing your oversight function, you must carry out very strong lobbying. You must develop very strong lobbying ability. If you do not, then your constituency will be shortchanged. I keep on repeating this. Then the constituency, the constituents too must realize now the essence of actually re-electing their representative so that he can get to a ranking level. Particularly when he has attained.
Should they wait to get to a ranking level? That's been my bone of contention.
No, that is the rule. I told you that there are understandings, there are code of conducts on the floor of the House. We have rules that guide the House.
Let's talk about the integrity of the Senate. You know, just like all the clarifications that the Senate has been trying to do, and even the clarifications you've tried to do on the show today, Do you think it will change the minds of Nigerians on how they view senators? This is something that Akpabio said on Tuesday.
You know, let me tell you one thing. All over the world, the most hated politicians are the parliamentarians. It's all over the world. All right. They see parliamentarians as lazy people who does nothing. Collect their allocations and collect their money and all that. So it's not a peculiar case with Nigeria. And why? Because they are the people you see before you can see the executive. Like I told you, there are only two in the federation, two elected people, the president and the vice president. There are 360 people in the House of Rep, 109 in the Senate. So the people tend to see you more. You are the closest to them. So it is normal, maybe by your way of life, improvement in your way of life and the rest, for you to be detested, and it's a normal thing. But again, every parliament must fight to preserve its integrity. And that is an example of what you have seen yesterday, that the Senate tried to clarify, to say what Ningi, one of us, said, it's a lie. And to show that it's a lie, we are punishing him with a 3-month suspension. So, in Nigeria, I was discussing with some friend yesterday. I said, whatever I am saying to you now, and even what I am saying now, there are a lot of Nigerians out there whose mind is made up, locked. They said, don't mind them, they are lying. Even when you are being sincere, you are saying the truth, you are saying it as it is, their mind is made up. We can only continue. The parliament can only continue to allay the fears of the people, to be as transparent as possible. The 8th Assembly was the first assembly to make their budget public. Yet, Nigerians will say, we did not see it, we want the breakdown. If you want the breakdown, go inside the budget. You will see you will see what this amount of money. And again, you see, when you see the budget of the National Assembly, 300 and something million naira, what comes to people's mind is that 350 something million naira divided into 360 plus 109 people. They are the people taking this one. No, they have forgotten that the National Assembly itself has over 5,000 to 6,000 staff that are part of this budget. Okay? Two more
we don't
policies.
have time to actually do the breakdown. But some people will still insist that this money is too much.
It's not too much. How can it's an arm. This is an arm of government.
I'll give you an example.
I just told you. Look, there is a public. Do you know that Public Complaint Commission? Public Complaint Commission is part of the National Assembly. Do you know that?
Honorable, the lawmaker from my state was giving validations to why the lawmakers should be driving foreign vehicles. Don't we have cars that are made in Nigeria? Why should the National Assembly lawmakers be driving cars that are not produced in Nigeria?
Well, I have how many cars?
Is that patriotism?
You just hold on. You have a point there. But again, how many companies? Just hold on, but how many companies manufacture vehicles in Nigeria? I do not support the listen. I do not particularly. Let me say one thing. As a former legislator, and looking at the situation we have in Nigeria, I think the 10th Assembly got it wrong by the purchases of those Jeep. They should have lived by example. I was a member of the 8th Assembly, and what we got was Pojo. But you know, the 8th Assembly, we had serious problems with the executive. So we were punished severely. But I mean, we made sacrifices. And how much was even our budget? The total budget of the 8th Assembly was, I think, about 155 billion naira. We are talking about 350 something billion naira. So you can see the difference. I think the leadership of the House, both the Senate and the House of Rep, goofed at this crucial time. To live such a flamboyant life, to want to drive such a very
that's what I want to say.
Yes, I agree with you on that ground.
Of Nigerians, and why most Nigerians have issues with...
it's not today. The issue they have with lawmakers do not start today. Even when the lawmakers... Yes,
I wanted us to talk
about... You see, it predates. The hatred for lawmakers predates the 10th Assembly.
Honorable, I want us to move forward. Watching the plenary yesterday, I was shocked to see that a few opposition lawmakers, actually was able to speak out. There's a conversation going online that where are all the Labour Party lawmakers? What happened? Everybody was just quiet. Yes, some of the allegations he made were false, but at the same time, when you look at the heart with which those allegations were made, it's all about transparency. Do you feel that the Senate lost out in that particular point that Senator Ningi was trying?
What do you mean by lost out?
In terms of transparency.
How?
Transparency in terms of the details of the breakdown that we just gave you on, even though he termed it to be something that it was not. But there's no full breakdown of how those monies...
I said they are in the budget. Pick the budget. You just pick summary. Go inside the budget. Pick the document, the Appropriation Act. They are there. Ningi, I hate to use this word, was just trying to be mischievous because he felt shortchanged.
Okay, now talking
that is just the summary.
Of time, talking about mischievous, Senator Opeyemi, Majority Leader, yesterday threw an allegations to Ningi that, I mean, there is a faction.
Don't forget that I'm a member of the PDP, and I should ordinarily be supporting Ningi. All right? What has played out is that because Ningi is not in APC caucus, that is not in PDP, it's not in APC caucus, where most of the leadership position would have been taken.
You've not been impartial, but I wanted to ask you this question. Opeyemi made this assertion that some people are trying to impeach Akpabio, and this was an attempt. What do you make of these assertions?
Well, if Akpabio commits of any crime, any offense that warrants his impeachment, it's not a big deal. He will not be the first person to be impeached in this.
But was this a move to paint, the?
I wouldn't know. It could be a ploy to prepare the grounds. I wouldn't know. Don't forget that Akpabio has been sitting on a very hot seat since he became the Senate president. I am not a particular fan of Akpabio, particularly by his emergence. But you see, the institution, the parliament must be protected.
Okay.
And that is where I stand.
Talking about, last question before we go, Honorable. Talking about you saying that this could just be a way of setting a fire ablaze, and we're talking about the fact that should Senator Ningi go to court, because analysts are saying that, I mean, the Senate doesn't have the powers to do what they did.
If you go, if he by, let me tell you, if he attempt to go to court,
that are going on with
if he ever attempt to go to court,
for Akpabio's
he will stay longer in suspension. If he dare go, and these are facts. If he attempt, those who went to court before him stay longer in suspension. All right. When issues like this arises among your colleague, political solution. You look, there are internal machineries. It could be reduced. It can make appeal to the ethics committee. But if you try to go to court, these are order, law and orders, internal law and orders. All right? He will stay long. If the case kept on being adjourned for 6 months, he will remain in suspension for 6 months. Right. So it's better for him to
out of time, I want to thank you for coming on Politics Now. At least we talked about clarifications, suspension of Ningi, and of course the integrity of the Senate, which is very, very important because they are the representatives of the people. Once again, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. Now. It's good to be here.
Well, our time is up. Thank you so much for being with us on the program. Of course, we will continue political conversations on Friday. Thanks for watching. Once again, my name is Morno Balagobo. Do have a lovely day.